It was part of their mystique that they was, you know, this identical side, identical twins. And if you hurt one, you had to hurt the other one.
It meant they could fight as one. They had telepathy between themselves. They could understand what the other was doing or saying without actually using any word.
It was a partnership. They wouldn't do anything without each other. You understand me? And if one was upset about something, he wouldn't have nobody else around. It was just them to talk about it.
At one time, you couldn't tell them apart. It's only as the years went on, Ronnie's drinking and that, and the pills he was taking, like, you know, for his paranoia, that his face got fatter, and then you could tell them apart.
As they got older, I think Reggie was the saner of the two. Reggie got thinner and very anxious looking. You could see he was living on his nerves. Ronnie didn't live in the real world at all.
The strange thing was then, even then, Ronnie was like the stronger personality, really, I suppose, more forward. Whereas Reggie was a bit more laid back. But even then, and that's exactly how it was as they got older, the same thing. But Ronnie was the leading light even then.
Her mother, Violet, adored me. She was a sort of Cockney Queen Mother figure. And she used to call the twins her little bunny rabbits. And she adored them, and she was very proud of them.
There's a mixture in between old Charlie. He wanted to be a good thief, but he wasn't. He wouldn't do it. And he also wanted to be a straight man at the same time.
I went to Fort Valence on a couple of occasions and was entertained by Violet in a very formal way. And Ronnie would pour the tea, you know, rather like the Queen Mother. It was what the Cockneys call a little palace. It was absolutely immaculate, the cleanest house you've ever seen. Everything polished and varnished. Every interior door had a lace curtain over it, tied back with pink bows. It was the closest thing to either the interior of a gypsy caravan or a longboat on the canals.
There's lots of people walking around in the East End of London that's been hit on the chin by Reggie, but I wouldn't say that about Ronnie. There'd be a different kettle of fish with Ronnie, because Ronnie wouldn't be happy with just hitting you on the chin. He'd look for you until he found you, and he would hurt you. Simple as that. You would fear Ronnie. There's no two ways about it. If Reggie sent for you and wanted to see you in Valence Road, you'd go round and see him. You'd have a cup of tea with him and you'd walk out. If Ronnie sent for you, you'd take 6 pairs of pants with you. That's the difference between the two of them.
He was feared, and anybody that said they wasn't frightened of him is telling lies. You know, I mean, I've heard loads of rubbish in the papers and seen all the rest of it. And I tell you what, if the man was alive today, they would be shitting themselves, you know, in case he did ever get out.
Reg, all his life, had this thing that he had to look after this sick, unstable, identical twin brother, and he did look after him. The only trouble was the unstable, mentally sick twin was the dominant. If Ronnie hadn't been quite so balmy and hadn't killed George Cornell, because he's supposed to have called him the Fat Poof, they'd be stone-rich geezers. They were in most of the frauds in the East End, a lot of protection, a lot of rackets. They really, really didn't need to kill people. But once that killing had happened, then that increased their terror ratio enormously, you see, particularly with Ronnie. Francis Bacon, incidentally, who also knew him, said he had the most frightening face he'd ever seen, which I think from Francis Bacon is quite something. He was a paranoid schizophrenic and he was mad. But he was fascinated by this whole illusory world of gangsterdom. For Ronnie, I think the barriers between real crime and film crime were very blurred, and I think he often stepped over them.
I've been in pubs in the East End, and the Krays would come in, and the pub had empty. People were so afraid of them.
They had a very driving force behind the two of them, and being twins and brothers, they urged each other on and tried to, like one would try and do better than the other one. I've done that, you know, I've got this and I've managed to do this. I mean, Ronnie Kray was a stronger personality out of the two, the more dominant of the two. But you knew they was for fame and maybe not fortune, but they was going to make their mark on the world, you know, from young. You knew that. I mean, I'm in several photographs from the early days, but I was only trying to keep a low profile, even though I was there at these different events and meetings over the years. I was, a lot of people didn't really know why I was there or what I was up to or what I was doing, but they invited me to lots of openings of different gymnasiums and clubs, and I was put in different bits of action that they had going because they needed me as an ally, you know, because it would give them a bit more strength to knowing that I was behind the scenes, who could come in like with a sort of counter punch, or if they needed any help. And I think I must have helped them to get to where they were, you know, by being associated with them.
To be honest with you, all I know is there's 7 people that they have killed. There's probably more, I don't know, but there's 7 people that I know that they have killed.
I think they were so carried away by the role they'd got themselves into as gangster killers, they had to do it finally.
So Ron murdered George Cornell in the Blind Beggar pub. His bloodlust was sated for a while. But somehow it wasn't enough. He knew the taboo on killing had to be broken again on the Krays' bloody road to fame. The twins had a twisted plan for fame. They would murder their way into the history books. The twins' competitiveness was escalating dangerously. Reg was under pressure to emulate his homicidal brother Ron and kill someone.
We're always in competition, and it's this strain between the two of them that one side of them, they adored each other, they lived for each other, and the other side, they hated each other.
So far, violence had rewarded them well. They fulfilled their West End dream and bought a nightclub, Esmeralda's Barn. They hoped the club would provide the key to the glittering society they craved.
I think they always longed to be part of the establishment. Rather like the American mafia godfathers becoming legit. They would have loved to have been legit and to have been accepted into the other world. Not the underworld, but the above the ground world. And their great bid for this was that when they left the East End, bought Esmeralda's Barn and moved into Knightsbridge.
And if you saw them two walk into a nightclub, suited and booted, respectable, they'd just sit there quietly, look around, and they had that look about them, you know what I mean, that nobody would mess around.
think it was rather like the arrival of a film star, and this was the George Raft effect. You know, they'd walk in looking rather menacing, and they always had acolytes with them, always a following, an entourage. They were just surrounded by men. And it was this sort of arrival of the twins, and a silence would fall. They did have an aura.
And so the Krays were able to continue blackmailing, maiming, or murdering anyone who stood in their way. It was what Ron wanted.
In the end, you got this pair of linked paranoid schizophrenics who were in charge of London but not in charge of themselves. They were wretched. It was a miserable fate.
Ron boasted about having personally killed a man. He goaded Reg, saying that if he could kill, why couldn't his brother do the same?
It was a thing with Reg and Ronnie, that if Ronnie did something, then he would Reggie thought he had to do it as well. And that's how they was. He does it, I'll do it. You know, you can do it, I can do it.
Ron cranked up the pressure. He began taunting Reg in public.
Ronnie shouting out to him, well, if you're going to shoot anybody, make sure you shoot him in the head, like I did Cornell. Out loud. Maybe because of Ronnie killing Cornell, he thought he had to kill, he had to do a murder as well.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.
Leave a like and subscribe.